Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Sober in Seattle. My name's Lara, and I'm down here at the Seattle Intergroup office in beautiful downtown Georgetown. And we're going to be talking to Bob P. today, who got sober in Seattle. Hello, Bob.
Howdy.
Thanks for agreeing to come on today. And Bob is somebody I've known my whole life because he's my dad. And he paved the way of sobriety for myself, and I owe him a huge debt of gratitude. And I'm just grateful that you're here today, Dad. And I guess we just want to start off with, um, just your story, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So I'll let you just take it away. I
Thanks
may
a
ask
lot.
some questions, but
Okay. Thanks a lot, Lara. Now you're welcome to ask questions. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the fact that you've given me the kudos for paving the way, because I don't know if I had much of a impact on in paving your way, frankly, in sobriety. Uh, but I'm sure glad I did, and without knowing it. Um, my sobriety started at the end of a long period of not really knowing what the hell was going on in my life. Um, I started drinking alcoholically at my first drink, and I found out later that I was genetically predisposed to the addiction to alcohol. In other words, something different happened to me when I drank my first drink than happened to the guy next to me drinking his first drink. I wanted to repeat that. I felt better than I've ever felt in my whole life. And I found out again that it's a chemical interaction in my brain that was set up by the fact that my mother's dad was alcoholic. In fact, he died alcoholic. Um, and so that was passed on to me. My mom never took a drink in her whole life, as far as I know, because I think she just got sick and tired of hauling her dad's but up and down the stairs and listening to all his broken promises. And I think she was kind of upset and disgusted with him, frankly, because back in those early days, there wasn't a lot of understanding about the disease. Much like today, there are stigmas still involved with the disease. I know that. And people who are alcoholic are looked down upon somehow. The disease, okay, well, yeah, but why do they act the way they do? Don't they know that all they have to do is quit drinking? And so there's really a lack of understanding about the power of the illness, I think, even today. So that was what was going on behind the scenes um, uh, before I even took a drink. Uh, and there again, it was something that happened almost at conception in my life. That there was something in place chemically, internally, that was waiting for me to take that first drink. Now, if I never had taken that first drink, I certainly couldn't have been an alcoholic. You need alcohol to become alcoholic. Uh, and But that wasn't my case. I did drink, and I loved it, and I wanted more of it right from the beginning. And my story is much like anybody else's that was raised in a pretty structured Norwegian household, religious based, and we had values. I had values that I had inherited from my parents and the way they lived their life, non-drinkers both. And when I drank alcoholically at 15 and a half, 16 years old, um, those values went right out the window because we stole alcohol, we shoplifted it. Uh, we drank secretly, my friend and I. Um, I stole it. I broke the law. I drank before I was 21. That was. I mean, I just did everything wrong, and right from the beginning, I couldn't see anything wrong with it. I enjoyed it. I loved it. And it was in the 60s. Well, that was actually it was in the early 60s. And then along came a whole bunch of other drugs right after that. And marijuana, of course, opened the door to some other drug use. Um, and I drank alcoholically and used drugs addictively for 25 years. I got sober in February 1982. So from 1960 to 1982, Bob was nowhere to be found. Unless you looked at the neighborhood tavern, you'd probably see me there. Because I was a tavern drinker once I got of age. Actually, before, a bunch of us guys that drank together were able to get into a tavern, and the guy didn't ask for our ID. We drank in there when we were 19 and 20. Um, but that's just kind of the way it was. That's the way it went. And I made time for drinking early on, and I stayed with it. Oh, there were times when I didn't uh, drink and get in trouble, but there were more times that I drank and got in trouble than not. And matter of fact, that was one of the things they told me when I ended up in treatment. They said, "Make take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle." And Bob, you tell me what alcohol has done for you. What are some of the positives that alcohol and drug use has done for you? And then on the other side, tell us what alcohol has done to you, some of the negative stuff. And I'll tell you, that list got real out of balance in a hurry. And so that was their way of letting me see what I'd been up to, because I really was in denial when I got sober in a treatment center. I was so much in denial that I was praying that it wasn't alcoholism. It was an alcohol and drug treatment center, and I was still denying that I might have had something wrong with my drinking and drug use. The strength of that denial was overwhelming, and while I was drinking, and as a result, I almost always excused my behavior. I excused the amount I drank. I excused the bums that I was hanging around with. Uh, I argued and fought since I was so out of balance. I was 180-degree off center by the time I got to treatment. That I would actually fight for the right to be wrong. Isn't that a crazy thing? I was so upside down, I was living an unreality reality. And in the process of recovery, initially in treatment, but ongoing in AA, has righted this, my thinking. And but that's what happened. The the litany of bad behavior, poor choices, lousy choices, and then defending those choices, and then suffering the consequences, and then continuing to drink was the nature of my disease. I would run to this thing that was trying to kill me. I would go to it over and over again, even though it was really kicking my butt, physically and emotionally. I was unable to take criticism. I would run from people that told me I was out of control, that I drank too much, that why would you want to do some of the things you've been doing, Bob? And I said, well, I don't see that as a problem. I know guys that are a lot worse than me, and so that denial system was always ready to keep me in the innocent seat, and then point fingers at everybody else. And that was the nature of my disease. One thing I learned in treatment, and I'll go back and tell some of my story if you want to, because it's pretty gory at times. It's certainly nothing that I'm proud of, but it's also something that I cannot forget, and I will not forget, because I know that if I went back out, that's what would happen. In fact, it would be probably worse than ever, because my body is now, I've been sober 41 years. I'm not 38 years old anymore. And my body would not tolerate alcohol, and it wouldn't be long before I was probably, um, living the promise of recovery or jails, institutions, or death. And I know that for a fact. And that's a serious thing at my age. It's not that I think about it or dwell on it, but I find myself thinking an awful lot about the finish line rather than the starting gate, you know. And that's okay. And I know active alcoholism would never, ever help that process. So, I think I kind of got off task there, a little off subject a little bit, because I'm thinking that if I ever did go back out, that would happen. And I was talking about something about, I can't remember. There you go. I'm old and starting to forget stuff. But
you had made it to treatment.
Yeah.
Where did you go to treatment at?
Valley General Hospital in Monroe, Washington. And I was admitted there in 2/17/82. And guess what? A month, 28 days later, I was discharged. Do you know what day it was? St. Patrick's Day. I was 28 days sober, released into the real world on the nation's greatest drinking holiday. I was scared to death. I think I went home and went to bed. I was staying with my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, and I think I was really pretty upset. I mean, because I didn't even drive the car home, man. I just wanted to go home and find a soft, safe place, because 28 days in a real safe environment made everything just look a little bit scarier out there in the real world. So that's where I got sober. And I think what happened for me is that I believe in God. I believe that there's a right and a wrong. I believe I have a conscience. I certainly do today. And I know the difference between right and wrong. And I knew the things that I did when I was drinking weren't in line with my conscience and my sense of right and wrong. I felt guilty, but the denial of the addiction stepped in and convinced me that it wasn't that big a deal. That you're probably okay. It's everyone else's fault. They're always, if they just back off or whatever. And so I tried to stay one step ahead of my conscience, I think, pretty much. As a result, I really didn't really acknowledge the fact that I was right or wrong. I just kept rolling along, and I really hadn't been involved. I know that my relationships with other women, your mother, was pretty much included alcohol and drugs throughout our whole marriage. And I had a second wife. The same thing happened. It was alcohol and drug related behavior, and we were trying to kind of like play the part, so to speak. We were just kids anyway. I was 24. I think your mother, when we got married, was 22. And you would think that somebody that old would have it together. Well, we were just two kids. And then you came along. So there were two kids raising a kid, and because there was not a lot of emotional maturity, we were trying really hard. And I think we succeeded in a lot of ways, but I think there was an awful lot of failure there too. And fortunately, you've had to work through a lot of that, and so have I. I'm just glad that you're here and doing what you're doing, Lara, and I'm eternally proud of you for what you're doing, and what a loving woman you've become. You're not a 6-year-old little kid running around any longer. And it's so gratifying to me to see that, because it makes me proud. It makes me realize that it's one of the most beautiful things I've done is contribute to your life, initially, and then certainly in sobriety. Well, there were some times when I remember some really good times that we had when you were a young kid. Although I left a relationship when you were young, there were times when we resurfaced and had those fun times too. So treatment really was the one that shed the light on that, turned me around, showed me where I'd come from, and gave me a chance to make some decisions in my within Bob. And it's the last place I wanted to go was inside Bob. I didn't want to figure out what was wrong with Bob, because that's pretty scary, because I hadn't been in touch with myself probably ever. Uh, I mean, really, 15 years old, I was just a punk. I didn't, I was acting out as teenagers do, but I had the stuff that was handed to me by my folks. And then alcoholism took over. And so by 38, I really hadn't really spent a lot of time figuring out anything about me. I was just reacting to the world. And instead of taking action based on, internal thought process, it just didn't happen like that until I got sober. And so it's been a slow kind of recovery for me in that regard. Um, we, but it opened my eyes, thank goodness. I was confronted with my conscience. I was lovingly educated around the disease of alcoholism, that I didn't want the disease. I didn't ask for it, but I had it. And so much of the devastation in my life up till that time was a direct result of that illness. Okay, so how do I get over it? Well, I don't get over it. I'll be an alcoholic the day I die, but I'm going to be a sober alcoholic if I keep doing what I'm doing. And uh, and the stigma, I can deal with that. I don't hang around people that use anymore. There's social events that I attend, and I'm bored after a little bit of time when it comes to people who are drinking, because we go to Arizona in the wintertime, and there's a lot of drinking down there, and people, it's just the way they celebrate. It's nothing new and different. And I leave early. I get there early and I leave a little early, um, because it's boring to me, frankly. And I've got better things to do with my time. So um, the the treatment center that I went to took me through step one, and I talked to one of the people there. He heard my my story, and he asked me to go down to the chapel, and he asked me to take the Bible that was down there and read Luke chapter 15. It's the story of the prodigal son. And I said, okay, because it took me an hour to get through talking about the stuff that I'd done while I was drinking. That was part of their recovery initially. And plus all the education around the disease and different aspects of psychology. The 12-step program was very powerful back in that treatment center, and I'm glad it did. It was called the Minnesota Model of Recovery, and it included the 12-step work. And I went down there and I read this story about this young man who raised had a chance to in a family, a believing family, him and his brother. But he said to his dad, he said, "Look, I'm sick of this crap. I want out of here. So give me my portion of the will and the property that you owe me. I'm gone." So the dad did. What could he do? And this kid went out, blew all his money, blew all his, put himself in physical, stress, and realized that after a while that he had made some crappy choices, and he just thought, well, if I went back to my dad, at least I could go to work for him as a servant. So he did. He went back. And his dad saw him coming, and this is really an emotional thing. He says that instead of going out and scolding him for being a jerk, he embraced him. He gave him the best of clothes. He said that we're going to have a party. It's going to be a celebration. You're not going to go to work as you're my son. My son that was once dead is now alive. He's alive. And so that's when the party started. I thought, and so I say that because that's what happened when I looked at, I accessed God in that chapel, in that treatment center, and realized God had never turned his back on me, never. that I was the one that turned my back on him. And it was only because of the disease and my shame and guilt for living so far against the values that I had. And I didn't even know I had them. I didn't even know they were mine. And the disease is the enemy in my life. And it's still there. It's right here. It talks to me. You know, and if I don't keep aware and work a program of active recovery, it can just slip in there and go, "Hey, hi Bob, how you doing? Remember me? Remember how much fun I used to have?" God, I wonder if that, I wonder if that tavern is still in existence. Let's drive by there next time you're done. What is that all about? You know. So, but that's just the way it is, and I think everyone that's listening to this would probably relate to that. We're just human beings, and I've been given a chance to turn my life around and live according to God's will and not Bob's will. So that's what happened. What it's like now is I'm I haven't been to a one-on-one meeting for a long time. Maybe I slipped into a couple noon meetings down in Bellingham here recently, but only just to sit in the back and listen. Um, I'm not a member or home group member of any kind of. It's all been Zoom ever since the COVID thing happened, and I Zoomed with you and your group, Lara, for gee, I don't know. It was over a year, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
yeah, and now that meeting's not in operation anymore. So I found another meeting that's local here, and I've been attending that meeting. I think there'll probably be times when I can establish myself in another one-on-one meeting because the dynamics there are what I'm really used to, frankly. It's kind of like having a distant relationship, you know. You sit there and look good and say all the right stuff, you know. You don't have the full presence of another person looking at you, and but so that's where I am right now with my recovery, and I'm looking forward to getting into other meetings that require me to show up and be a part of that group, you know. So um, the the 12-step program lovingly asked me to be courageous when I've been such a chicken and running away from everything for a long, long time. And it asked me to sit tight long enough and to be patient as I could be, uh, to realize that there's some work to do and that you don't have to do it all at once. That the 12-step program is not designed to do anything more than keeping me sober one day at a time. And um, I've done that. And some days that's all I did was just not drink because I didn't do anything else. Because I was unable to do, because I was unwilling to do anymore. But I didn't drink and I didn't use. And in this program, they say you're a winner if that's all you do. You're a winner instead of a loser. And I said, well, hell, I can deal with that. And but they said that's not where it ends, Bob. You know, we want you to do more. You know, it's like you got to hear dances dance all the way through to the end. You know, and I had a sponsor early on that didn't want to be my friend. He was friendly, but he wasn't afraid to call me on my crap. You know, and to say, let's get busy on this thing. How much longer do you want to hang around here? And we had a good relationship with our relationship with God was the same, and that made all the difference. He wasn't trying to bring me into the Buddhist line of thinking or Muslim line of thinking. You know, it was just a couple of guys who'd been raised in the church and really hadn't made any much of a commitment to God or anything, but were able to resurrect that whole notion of life everlasting as a spiritual thing, because and so anyway, I'm waiting for that to happen. In a way, I'm kind of excited about it. I hope I'm right. That's how determined I am to to meet my maker. I just hope I'm right. The alternative doesn't sound too good. Anyway, the whole program, I'm getting way off schedule or off topic here, but it has not just helped get me sober, it has given me so much more. But it's all based on that willingness that to work this simple program, the simple program that is so hard sometimes. Someone said the 12-step program is an adult program for children. And that's what they got when I walked in the door at 38 years old, a kid. I had no emotional skills whatsoever to deal with challenging things. What I saw that was too difficult, too overwhelming, too much work, I just bailed for 25 years. That's all I did. I did not hang in there. I didn't develop any survivor skills more than just surviving. And then that process of avoiding, that's what you guys got when I walked into AA. So you have taught me how to grow up. You have taught me too, Lara, watching you and see how you're handling your life. I learned a lot from you. I guess I should say thank you finally, because I've been watching you for a long time. And
I'm amazed how long sometimes it takes for how it has taken me to grow up emotionally. Always searching for emotional experiences rather than trying to develop a spiritual experience.
right.
It's taken its toll on my life and other people's lives around me, making major decisions based on how I felt. Isn't always a good idea. Of course, it took what it took to figure that out, but that's all right.
No, I think that's such an important statement, because we're imperfect human beings, and trying our best, and all fall short over and over. But I have a loving, forgiving God in my life. I have a program that says, okay, if you want to do a little work, we can help you move away from those kinds of feelings of, self-deprecation and blaming yourself. There's a program that says, let's make a list of the people you've harmed, even today, and let's make some amends. Let's get out there and say, look at, I was way off base. I have to apologize for this. How do I make it right? How do I make it right? And then if there's any request to say, well, you can do something different, you can write, you know, and then do it. If not, then I know I've done all I can do. And it's a form of self-forgiveness, but it's also a form of clearing the air between other people. And that, I'm a social animal. I think most alcoholics are underneath it all, even though we've lived isolated for so long in the disease. I need you, and I need the people in this fellowship, because without that understanding, I would be all alone and thinking that there was no way out. But when I walked into my first meeting, one of my first meetings, and I heard them laughing about stuff that I didn't think was very funny. And I realized that they were laughing because they'd found a way out too, and they were willing to help me uh, out of the pit, if you will, of alcoholism, of active alcoholism. So I guess that's really income. I can get into some pretty gory details about my stuff, but I think it's just like everybody else's gory details that they've claimed, and they don't want to forget, certainly, and I can't either, but I don't have to dwell on it. And the process has been just natural. Once I got over the first couple of hurdles and realized that, okay, God isn't a God of retribution. He's a loving guy, if you will, or God that isn't laying behind a bush trying to wait and trip me up so we can go, Steve Bob, I got you, or to scold me and say, well, don't ever do that again, or you're going to go to hell, or whatever. No, he wants the best for me. he didn't put me on this planet to be a drunken slob. That was given to me, I guess it was peer pressure that really got me to take my first drink. I wanted to fit in. But then since I've been sober, I've gone back and I've revisited that attitude. What is it about me that makes me want to say no to my values just to please somebody else? And that's that codependency, and I've had to work on that as well in conjunction with my addiction to alcohol. I'm addicted to wanting to be, you know, a good guy, always, you know. So, and can't do that either. But there's a middle road that I can get along pretty well with people today as long as I stay focused on where I am, and I could never do that sober, or I mean drinking. Sobriety has offered me that opportunity to grow too. So,
Well, that's awesome. That's a good story, Dad. Alcoholics Anonymous is an amazing program. So it gave me my dad back, you know, my mother to a certain degree, and a life beyond my wildest dreams. So yeah, it's an amazing program. Well, thanks for sharing your story with us. I appreciate it.
yeah, it went fast. Did I cover all 41 years?
No, probably not. Probably not. That could take another session.
Half hour.
But yeah, we've done good. This has actually taken 30 minutes, and I think it's a good time to stop. I was, you know, the only thing that I kind of was wondering about is, but you kind of already touched on it, is you know, what your spiritual life looks like now, what your spiritual practice is now. I mean, I kind of feel like COVID was a blessing in that it forced me to stop, you know, to look inward more than maybe I had a tendency to when I was always going to in-person meetings. I wasn't able to go to in-person meetings anymore, and I wasn't able to be as busy as I like to stay sometimes, and going inward and meditating and reflecting on what God's will is for me um, uh, has been a game changer. And, you know, it talks about doing that in steps 10 and 11 every day. And of course, it wasn't until COVID that I started paying a lot of attention to that, and that, well, maybe they really mean what they're talking about with this prayer and meditation. I mean, I would try different things and do different things, but it wasn't really until I was forced to slow down
Mm-hmm.
that I was able to understand the importance of that. So,
Yeah.
is that part of your spiritual life today too?
Well, I don't meditate on purpose. A lot of structured medication. A lot of structured. You don't want to delete that part. A lot of structured meditation. I find myself meditating after the meditation has started. If I'm in a place that's comfortable, not sleepy, but just comfortable, and my mind wanders. And I guess that's the point of meditation, that I can get a kind of a step back from Bob and get a little bigger picture of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm an okay guy. I've got some pretty good values today, and I'm not going to transgress those because I don't want to feel guilty anymore. It's a difference between denial and guilt. Is that when I do something that I know that I've done wrong, I feel guilty. And like I've said so many times, that God didn't put me here to be happy, joyous, and free and guilt-ridden. You know, that's not part of the formula. So I have to focus on that. The meditation, I when I close my eyes at night before I go to sleep, I go back over the day, and it's at that moment, at that little piece of time, that I realized, if I hadn't realized it before, that I can, when I'm wrong, I can promptly admit it. Probably might mean the next morning, but I can't run from myself anymore. My conscience is wide awake. Uh, there's no one else to bullshit. It's me and God. And I believe God comes to me in the form of my conscience, because that's what tells me I'm right and wrong. And and that's okay. I welcome that, because without it, all that stuff would build up, and too much of that builds up, and pretty soon I got a reason to go, have a few. And I'm not entertaining that at all. So
Mhm.
the work that used to be work isn't work anymore. It's necessary. It's necessary to, you know, to keep my recovery mentality going, and my active recovery in place. So meditation, well, yeah, I guess so. But I don't get into the structured meditation anymore. Medication. Dr. Paul said that he was at a meeting and he saw someone say, he says, I saw through prayer and medication to improve my, no, that's wrong.
Well, yeah. I do like that description, Dad, of God consciousness, that you just become conscious of God. I mean, I guess that's what it's all about. Um, yeah. Well, and I do think that that is something that you can only, I mean, they say it doesn't matter how long you've been sober, but I gotta say that, it's hard it was hard for me to have God consciousness when I was 1 or 2 or 3 years sober, or even 10 or 15 years sober for that matter. It wasn't until I was sober quite a while. And maybe it has something to do with, getting older. I mean, that might have something to do with it too. But I think that there's only things that you can only get when you've been sober a while.
That's
Uh,
probably true. I think that you're right about, um, I was the last one to find out that I was an alcoholic. Everybody in the whole world knew, but me. I found out, and that was a humiliating, sort of scary, humbling experience. That was, and sometimes in sobriety, I realize I'm the last one who's experiencing the serenity of working a program of recovery. And I realized, wow, huh, like you said, this works. And I think that some people, we're all just wired just a little bit different than everybody, but we share the commonality of having a life-threatening disease. So we bring that to this place, and we share those things. And I relate uh, to some things some people are sharing, and then in his next breath or her next breath, I realize, well, that's not me at all. So we have such a variety of behaviors and motives for doing what we do. Is that there's so much to learn if I keep my ears open. And yeah, God consciousness. I I keep going over what my dad does, and as he got older and older, he would sing this song, "What a Friend We Have in Jesus," and he sang it thousands of times, and at a point in his life where you think he would be clinging to something a little more than just a song, but I think that was his ticket into heaven. You know what I mean? I don't know what his life was like. He didn't share much about his past specific things, but that's about it. I mean, I didn't get a whole picture of my dad. And so, but I knew that he was God fearing, and I knew that he was a good man, and I knew that he was a loving man and a good provider. And even though I thought he was square and kind of full of it there for a long time, when I was so sophisticated at 16 or 18 years old, uh, uh, that that he really had it together at that time. And the older I got, the more I was able to make amends to him, even after he's gone now. I make amends to my dad for being there for me, and for I know why he scolded me. I know why he you know yelled at me. I know why he demanded of me, but I didn't at the time. But I know now. So I'll always be grateful for that, you know, and just to have that back, and to realize that I'm not that far off of what he was. I had to work a little harder to get here. He didn't have to. He was a different generation. They just had to do certain things in order to survive. It's been a lot easier for me. It's been going to be a lot easier for you and your children, and you know, because, well, maybe harder in some regard, but easier because you don't have to, you know, fight so hard to survive. So anyway, I'm glad I was raised in that generation. Frankly, it was safer, uh, less complicated upbringing. But anyway,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, Dad. Well, thanks so much for making some time for me here. And I guess that'll be it. Signing off, huh?
God bless you, Laura. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.